This conference will now be recorded.
My name is Bruce Kolner, and I would like to open a public hearing on a proposed map amendment for the following. The applicant is Curtis W. Smith. Raise your hand if you're here. Curtis is not here. He's on virtual. Okay. Mr. Smith, you're here, correct?
I am here. I am on the GoToMeeting presentation.
Thank you. This is on behalf of Boulder Venture LLC. The landowner is JMD International LLC. The property in question is located at 120 Montrose West Avenue. The parcel number is 1702661. The purpose is for a map amendment. The current zoning of this parcel is Planned Development District, or PDD, Highway Services. The proposed zoning is Planned Development District, PDD, Residential Medium High Density at 21.3 units per acre. This parcel is 4.89 acres and 104 units. I would like to verify from the zoning staff and the economic development staff that the hearing was advertised in accordance with the Ohio Revised Code. I would like to swear in all persons who would speak on the proposed tax amendment. Please stand and raise your right hand. Mr. Freer, is that going to be you? Okay. Gentlemen, are you going to? Okay. Everyone would respond yes. I don't see the swearing in here. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, so be you know? Thank you. As you know it, right? Okay. Ms. Kafir, do you want to speak about this now?
Hang on a second.
We do need a secretary pro tem. I apologize. We should stop there.
And then we're doing a public hearing. I think we need to vote to open the hearing.
Okay.
So I move to open the public hearing for the map amendment application for 120 Montrose West Avenue.
Second, Schulte.
Do we need a resolution for that? No. Okay. I'll call for the vote.
I vote yes.
Kohler, yes.
Schulte, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Dressler. I appreciate pulling out that point of order. And we do not have a secretary as our fiscal officer is not present. So I would move to make Ms. Marshall secretary pro tem.
Second, Schulte.
Call for the vote.
Scott votes yes.
Kohler, yes.
Schulte, yes.
Every time goes back to the neighborhood.
The DOJ says the employee only worked for Johnson for 6 weeks. However, Johnson kept drawing the money from the city and depositing.
Sorry, thank you.
That's okay. You'll have to just.
Ms. Graffier, will you pull the mic down so the people virtually can hear you? No. Okay, thank you.
Let's see what happens.
So again, we're considering a map amendment for permanent parcels 1702661 and 1702662, located at 120 Montrose West. The applicant, Curtis Smith, on behalf of Boulder Venture LLC, has submitted this map amendment application for the purpose of permitting the adaptive reuse of the existing hotel property and building structures from a hotel to apartment building. Again, the current zoning is the Planned Development District, PDD, of Highway Services, which does permit hotels and motels, but not apartments as residential use. The requested zoning, Planned Development District, residential medium high density at 21.3 units per acre. And just to clarify, this is a change in use designation. It's not a rezoning of the entire PDD. It would not change the PDD. It would not create a new PDD or PRD. This is a change in use. Okay, next, just a review of the surrounding adjacent properties to 120 Montrose West. So to the north, we have the Planned Development District Highway Services, or restaurant use. To the south, we have the Planned Development District Business Office Highway Services. This is also an existing hotel. To the east, we have Planned Development District Business Office Highway Services. This is a large tenant office building. And to the west, we have two apartment complexes. The first is the apartments Hunt Club, and this is at a medium high density as well, 15.4 acres. Unit with 232 dwelling units. There's actually 18.03 acres of this property. The original zoning was for 15.4. And then the Summit Rise Apartments, the Plan Development District, again, this is also medium to high residential, 4.82 acres with up to 25 units per acre. Next, you'll see here, this is just a map, and we apologize. The map of the PDD is large and cumbersome and very detailed, but we're looking at what you would consider the Highway Services District currently on this map, which is the upper right-hand corner, which is the northeast corner outlined in red. That is the only Highway Services District of the PDD. But what you're seeing here is the entire Plan Development District. And then here you'll see the map that's for consideration this evening. Again, that's two parcels. The parcel to the right, lot 13R, as it's indicated on.
No, I don't think it'll let me see the red thing.
That is known as parcel 1702661. That's approximately 3.8 acres. And parcel 1702662, that's the parcel to the left. That would be known as the remainder parcel at 1.2796 acres. Those were both zoned for the purpose of the Residence Inn in 1986, the original zoning for parcel 1702661, and then the additional parcel 1702662 was approved in 1988, and these are existing two-story apartment hotel. Next, we'll look at what the uses are in the Plan Development District for the highway services. This is the current zoning. In general, the purpose of the Plan Development District, this Plan Development District was approved in 1984 by the Conway Township Board of Trustees. What they wanted to do was create a large development of zoning known as a Plan Development District, or for the ORC, a planned unit development. So at that time, they were looking at ways to develop that land in a ways that would unify the area through streets, centralized services. Again, they wanted to protect some of those natural features and incorporate a large variety of uses in that particular area. So in general, the Plan Development District is a little bit different than what we would see in typical residential medium density zoning, where you have one zoning classification as the PDD, and then each individual parcel has its own use. And so that's how it makes it pretty unique in itself. Today, in this district of highway services, you would be permitted to have auto truck sales and services, gas stations, hotels, motels, and restaurants. So as far as commercial goes, this is a very high intense use of commercial space. In today's commercial general retail, these would be, with the exception of restaurants, these would be conditionally permitted. In the PDD, there are no designated conditional uses of highway services. And then in general, nothing that would be prohibited per the comprehensive land use plan, or uses which impact land use in general in regards to nuisance would be permitted. Next again would be the Plan Development District residential medium high density. And what this is saying is that the permitted use would be exactly what would be approved this evening. Single to multifamily at 21.3 units per acre for a maximum of 104 units, which is what currently exists on these two parcels. Then there are no designated conditional uses for residential in the PDD. And what would be prohibited would be those not in accordance with the land use plan or those which create excess nuisance. So when we looked at rezoning our map amendment application, our first goal is really to look at the comprehensive land use plan and how does this align. That's really what we want all of our map amendment applications to do is align to that future land use. So per the comprehensive land use plan, which was approved and adopted for 2020 through 2025, we just went through that. The parcels currently, which are designated as Plan Development District Highway Services, you'll see here momentarily that in that future land use map, we actually recommend that they be zoned residential, medium to high density. That's really how they're being used. So the goals and objectives really would be here to sustain. This is how we believe this application meets the land use plan. So we want projects which sustain Copley's a good place to live by offering affordable housing options. We want to encourage compact and mixed-use developments from existing infill sites before using open land. We really want to study and take into a lot of consideration what the best use of the land is for this corridor in particular. It comes up a lot. Really, our hotel is the best use of our land in this corridor. We want to use redevelopment, which is exactly what the applicants are asking to do tonight, and adaptive reuse. We want to encourage both of these development principles. And then we want to identify blighted properties and pursue corrective measures to enhance those properties. So again, we're speaking of the Highway Services District here in the red. This is the comprehensive land use plan, future land use. So again, you'll see designated here in the yellow, with the yellow arrow. We're just calling out the high density residential, which is what the future land use plan calls for this parcel to be, which is exactly what the applicant is asking for this evening. We did place this map amendment in the Westside Leader. A notification was sent to the property and surrounding landowners as well. We also placed a notification sign on the parcel itself that it was going through a map amendment hearing. This map amendment has been reviewed publicly since November 2020. Copley County Zoning Commission did review this twice. They are recommending approval. The Summit County Planning Commission reviewed this in December. They are also recommending approval. And we've received no objections to this project from our public. This is to review the applicant's application with you this evening, and more specific, they're stating that the existing zoning for this parcel use designation as highway services is unreasonable because the applicant states that the existing zoning does not permit multifamily residential units, which is correct. The applicant believes that the rezoning would be better because the rezone would permit continued residential use of the property, again, while allowing a long-term apartment rent. And again, for the applicant, so the goal of F Street Boulder's ownership, which would be known today, the name could change. The Glen Apartments Copley would be to provide high-quality multi-family housing, which is price competitive. Per the applicant, they believe that the design of the current facilities as it's used as a hotel motel is no longer economically viable. They believe that there is a strong demand for apartments, which makes the conversion successful. The physical attributes lend itself well to multifamily use. Converting the property from hotel to townhomes would change the resident profile from transient to pre-qualified renters. And then delivering the product to the market provides residents with a high-quality, competitively priced apartment community package. Again, as a review, we've submitted this map amendment application internally and externally to the following agencies and departments, and we've received favorable feedback or approval from those agencies, including Copley Township. Chief Michael Meyer did provide a comment letter regarding this project. That comment letter was shared to the applicant. And the applicant and Chief Meyer have been in contact with existing concerns on the property. Copley Township Fire has stated they have no objections to the project. Copley Township Service has stated they have no objections to the project. And again, the Copley Township Zoning Commission on January 7th did recommend approval. The plan was also shared with Summit County. Summit County Planning Commission recommended approval on December 17th, 2020. Summit County Soil and Water Conservation District had no objections. Summit County Department of Sanitary Sewer Services had no objections, and the Summit County Engineer's Office had no objections as well. For the city of Akron, the city of Akron had no objections. They would be pending review of their interior plans. And then there would be a change in use that would be made with the city of Akron tax department from hotel motel to residential. And then finally, the Department of Community and Economic Development, we do recommend approval of the map amendment application based on the criteria that you see here on the screen. I won't go through this verbatim, but in general, we do believe that the proposed rezoning is certainly compatible with the other adjacent property uses. We believe that the property is currently underutilized, and the rezoning would really help to add a consistent and stable residential use to this area. We haven't identified any public service impacts, any safety impacts. We do not believe, again, that there would be an adverse impact to the adjacent properties. We believe that the applicant has stated their intent to improve this property, therefore, hopefully, with the end result, improving the property value for all of those around. We do believe that since this property was zoned highway services back in 1984, that the market conditions have changed. Overall, there's been a decline in the original construction, which would be improved by the applicant's updates. Additionally, the transient market in the Montrose area has certainly deteriorated and become oversaturated. So we believe that the adaptive reuse would definitely aid in the increase in affordable and diverse housing stock. So we do recommend approval of this, and we certainly have been completing a lot of due diligence to bring that approval recommendation to the board. So at that time, that concludes the introduction and presentation for the map amendment.
Thank you. Is there anybody, would any of the applicants like to speak on behalf of, or is anybody here to speak on behalf of the applicant, I'm sorry. Come up to the podium, please. State your name and your position. You've already been sworn.
Hi, good evening. My name is Robert Schmidt with Boulder Venture. My partner Kurt Smith is joining us via Zoom, and my partner Scott Lurie is also in the audience as well. I want to be respectful of your time, so I'll just give you a brief introduction and respond to questions. I would say, first of all, it's nice to have a meeting face-to-face for a change instead of via Zoom. And I want to thank Ron and Loudon for all their time with this file for the past several months. Our respective companies started buying these hotels 5.5 years ago, and we really scoured the country looking for them. And I would tell you, it's really the same story that we see, which is that in the 1980s, Marriott Corporation did a great job picking really good communities with good demographics for their locations. But then when they removed their flags and went to a new concept like they did in Copley and went to more of a tower concept, they abandoned what were really a campus of 8-family apartment buildings. And while they were used as hotels, long-stay hotels, if you really think about the configuration, it really is a campus of 8-family apartment buildings. And when they lose the flag, it's the same story. They go independent. Illicit activities come into the property. There's not enough cash flow to maintain them, and it's sort of a downward spiral. So what we do is we go around the country looking for these, and we do a turnaround. We come in, we recapitalize them, renovate the interior and the exterior, and then we screen the new tenants on 1-year leases and really turn the property around and bring in an affordable apartment concept for communities that have high demographics such as yours. My partner Scott Lurie can speak to actual management and screening activities if you want to hear about that. But that's basically our business plan, and we would take any questions you have.
Any questions?
If I may, you've done this in the past. How often have you converted a residence in to apartments like this?
This will be our third project.
Third project?
Yeah,
okay.
The first one was in Milwaukee, a suburb called Glendale. The second one is in Albany, New York. We bought that one in 2019, and that one is about 50% leased right now. This will be our third one, and we're actively scouring the country. In fact, we were in Mississippi yesterday looking at the property.
And the one in Milwaukee, how leased up is that?
I would say it consistently has a waiting list.
Okay. When you go into these properties, what kind of capital improvements are you making?
Interior, new flooring, new new cabinets, new appliances, or paint the cabinets, new appliances. Exterior, we do all sorts of trim work, painting, new HVAC equipment on the outside. We renovate the pool, the sport court. We do some sort of maintenance in the parking lot. We refurbish the landscaping. So really, we're really touching every aspect of the property that in most cases has been neglected for at least a decade.
So you're planning on a full facelift here? Okay.
What kind of, I know it's regional, or what kind of rents based on the number of bedrooms?
So I would tell you that we're generally in the $700 to $900 range for our units. These units, these properties tend to have a lot of one bedrooms. This one only has 28 two bedrooms, loft style two bedrooms. So the rent ranges would be in the $700 to $900.
Have you forecast any kind of occupancy that you predict here within a year? What's your completion timeline, and how soon before you're up to your occupancy?
Yeah, we're actually, we met with a local property manager today so that we can plan to start in April. And because of it's a campus of 8 families, we can so go building by building, and we can finish buildings to sort of match the absorption. And I would say that we tend to surprise ourselves. And while we might plan on a 1-year saturation of apartments, we might do it faster than that.
Okay, so you're gonna phase it in one building at a time.
It would,
Yeah.
yes, but it would be a continuous, we wouldn't stop renovating until the whole project was complete.
Okay. What's the length of time for the entire project to be complete in your mind?
Generally, I would say it's maybe 120 to 150 days.
Okay.
Sometimes we run into problems with permitting with COVID.
Yeah.
But yeah, generally, I would say definitely within 4 to 6 months from start.
Perfect.
Is there any management staff? Oh, I'm sorry, did I interrupt?
Oh, good.
Is there any management staff that's permanently officed or staged at the facility?
Not 24 hours, but we do have one full-time manager and one full-time maintenance person on the property.
So 8 hours a day.
Yes.
Okay. And one of those units will be turned into their office?
Typically not, because the hotel had a management office,
Mhm.
and that's where we'll do our laundry facility. We'll do, a community gathering room, and there's an exercise room in there as well. So we bring a lot of sort of community activities into that building, and that's where the management office is.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Was there any other questions as far as management? Dresser, you have any?
No.
Okay. Anybody else that wants to speak on behalf of the applicant? Okay, I will then ask the public. Is there anybody from the public that wants to speak in favor of the text of the map amendment? I'll ask 3 times. Again, is there anybody in the public that would like to speak in favor of the map amendment? And the 3rd time, is there anybody who would like to speak in favor of the map amendment? All right. None? Then I'll ask, is there any member of the public that would like to speak against the map amendment? And again, I'll ask this 3 times. Is there anybody who would like to speak against the map amendment? And the 3rd time, is there anybody who would like to speak against the map amendment? Mr. Kafir, I'll ask you then, have you received, and you mentioned it in here, but I want to be clear, you've received no opposition letters from the public about this map amendment? And I'll ask the same question reverse. Have you received any letters from the public in favor of the map amendment? Okay. Okay, with that then, I will make a motion to close the hearing.
Oh, second.
Ms. Marshall, will you call the roll, please?
Discussion on the close.
Oh, I'm sorry, discussion on closing?
You good? Any comments? Okay. Go ahead.
Trustee Schulte?
Yes.
Trustee Fuller?
Yes.
Trustee Driscoll?
Yes.
So the public hearing is now closed. And then I'm going to make a motion for approval of the map amendment for discussion.
I'll second.
Schulte, second. Okay, discussion.
I think it's a welcome change to the community. Economic Development did a good job in actually ferreting out all the issues, I think. I see no reason not to approve this.
And I will double on that with another comment as well. As we know, in the Montrose area, there's a large number of hotels, of which there's currently a closed hotel that the township took to court on a nuisance charge and had it with somebody here in the audience that helped us with that, to have that closed. And it has not been sold or purchased by another operator. And it shows that there's too many hotels in the area. So with that, I'm in favor of this project as well. A welcome breath of fresh air, some influx of investment capital into this would look well. We are looking for safety and good community, good neighbors to have. So I will put that on the managers that is imperative. We've had issues over the last several years, and we're hoping to clarify or rectify those issues. Mr. Dresser, do you have anything?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a good move for the community, and everybody's pretty much made all of their comments on what are the advantages. So.
Sure.
I'll pile on. It's a shame the closed hotel doesn't have the style and footprint that this hotel does, or maybe you get two projects in this community.
Yeah. Okay. Any other discussion? Any discussion? Sorry, my phone's got an Amber Alert coming in. With that, Ms. Marshall, we call the roll.
Yes.
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 There you have it, Ms.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, gentlemen. We are again hoping for a good project there.
Nice
Mr.
to see
Sugarman,
you.
it's nice to see you, sir. Okay.
Pretty timely, Chris. 6:30.
Yeah.
If I wouldn't have been late, you've been right on the nickel.
Exactly. Okay. So with that, I'm going to at 6:32, I'm going to call the regular scheduled Board of Trustees meeting together on February 23rd, 2021. Please rise if you're able for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jim, turn the light on down there. It might be dark in the camera. Right there.
Okay. Welcome all our guests. We've got a lot on our plate tonight. We'll get to them as quickly as we can. But with that, in the regular scheduled meeting, again, in the absence of our fiscal officer, Ms. Pfeiffer, I would move to elect Ms. Marshall as our Secretary Pro Tem.
Second, Schulte.
Any discussion? I'll call for the vote. Colner, aye.
Schulte, aye.
Dressler, yes.
Okay. Anything from the Board of Trustees? We wanted to open a discussion first about the Tuscan Ridge Development Company, LLC, and including that property into the joint Akron-Copley Economic District. So Ms. Marshall, do you want to start us off there with a discussion, or would you rather economic development start?
I can read the petition that was received.
Thank you.
We received a petition of Tuscan Ridge Development Company LLC to be included in the Copley Akron Joint Economic District. Tuscan Ridge Development Company LLC hereby petitions the Copley Akron Joint Economic Development District Board, the City of Akron, and Township of Copley to be included within the district. Tuscan Ridge owns approximately 7.44 acres of property, more or less, as described in Exhibit A attached here to and incorporated herein by reference, and known as Summit County Permanent Parcel Number 15-08514 property, which are located in the Township of Copley but not located within the district. Tuscan Ridge requests that the Copley Akron Joint Economic Development District Agreement be amended, including Addendum A thereto, to add the property to the district. Under Section 5 of the Joint Economic Development District Agreement, Tuscan Ridge is filing this request with the board and is requesting the City of Akron and Township of Copley to agree to amend the Joint Economic Development District Agreement to add this additional property.
Okay. So for the purposes of discussion, I'll make a motion to include this area into the JED. Or here a second. Second for discussion. So generally, I know there's some people here that would like to speak about this. Generally, we don't take testimony for this stuff. But in this case, Mr. Loudon has asked, Mr. Klein, I'm sorry, I keep calling him by his first name, has asked for you folks to be able to. So is there someone here who would like to speak for or against this? Would you please state your name at the mic, please?
My name is John Slater. It's Slagter.
Mr. Slater.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
I'm an attorney with the Tucker Ellis Law Firm. My address is 950 Main Avenue, Suite 1100, Cleveland, Ohio, 44113. And I'm representing this evening Redwood Living. In addition, we have with us Representative Tuscan Ridge Development Company, LLC, which is the owner of the property. Redwood Living is under contract to acquire the property and has been in the process of getting the approvals for it. And I'm also joined this evening by Pat Ricosi, who's a representative of Redwood Living, experienced developer, builder, and also a resident of Copley Township. Joel Stile is the representative of Heritage Ridge Development Company and the owner and experienced developer. They've actually owned the property since the 1960s. And property was rezoned to, my understanding, is PDD zoning. And I think it was 1984. So it's been zoned that way for a substantial period of time. I know that under your zoning, there were some changes that look like that occurred in around 2017, I believe. And there is an identification of this particular parcel as allowing what's called medium to high density residential. Just to familiarize yourself with the area, and I know you know it well, is basically sandwiched between two higher density residential developments. Again, it's 7.44 acres of property. The proposed density is less than the adjacent properties. We believe it fits in well. In fact, we've gone through the township and all other necessary governmental approvals and gotten approval for it. So the only stumbling block and issue and what brings us here today is the issue of water. The problem is without Akron providing water to this site, it cannot be developed under the current zoning. Your PDD zoning, actually, the purpose of it specifically indicates that it is for areas in which there is central sewer and water. So the basis of it was always anticipated there would be water there. In fact, all the water infrastructure is there. And the issue becomes an issue over a recent interpretation by the city of Akron that these types of uses, apartment uses or otherwise, they consider to be a commercial operation and therefore should be within the JED district, which would then allow them to be subject to the income tax requirements that are set forth in your JED. And I know you're familiar with some of this, just kind of walking through, so we're all on the same page. We had a similar issue to this, just to give you some history, with the Ridgewood development that Redwood had did earlier, I'd say late 2019, 2020. And ultimately, we reached an agreement with Akron and Copley in which all we had to do was petition for inclusion. And then ultimately, it was up to Copley and Akron to work in good faith to try to come to an agreement. And if they couldn't come to an agreement, we still would get water, and Akron was fine with it. Akron is no longer fine with that position. They've indicated that it's their position that if we're going to grant water, we need to be in the JED. They consider this a commercial enterprise. And so that's the reason and the impetus for the petition. We have approached both the township and informed the township council about our desire. We don't have an objection, and obviously we actually petitioned to be included within the JED because we need water. So we don't have an issue with it. We do respect township position as it relates to a belief that residential uses like this don't need to be within the JED. And without going through the entire JED agreement, I understand that this area is also included what's called a township service area, which would allow extension of water. But it doesn't appear that that's a mandatory requirement. I don't want to, it may or may not be, let's put it there may be an issue over it. That being said, it puts us in a very difficult position. We're in kind of the middle of this interpretation issue. Without it, the practical issue that exists for my client and for Mr. Stile is we can't move forward with that development. We've already invested close to hundreds of thousands of dollars in it. Mr. Stile will lose the sale of this property. And so, and there's really nothing that can be developed under the zone. The practical issue there is that then by governmental action, either not allowing us to be included, it puts us in a difficult position of there being a taking because all the value of the property has been stripped. And again, we're not here tonight at all. This is for discussion purposes. We don't want to be threatening. So please don't consider that to be the case. But the practical matter is we're in a very difficult position. As a township, typically their authority is all derived and comes in the revised code and specifically deals primarily with zoning. So from your perspective, all your normal regulatory requirements in terms of setbacks and health and safety issues have been complied with. All of the county and city requirements in terms of infrastructure, utility design, have all been reviewed and approved. And so this only issue comes of whether or not we should be in or out. The practical and probable or the practical issue with that, and from a legal perspective, is no matter what you do or what the city of Akron does, it's going to be a governmental action. There has to be a legitimate governmental reason to deny this. And so from our viewpoint, our standpoint, as it relates to Copley and the normal authority, I don't really believe that there is. To the extent that you do have issues over interpretation of your JED agreement, if you can't come to terms on that, that's something that you have the authority to go to court and have a court determine through declaratory judgment action of how it should be interpreted. We don't want to be the test case for that, and we don't think that's necessary. I had suggested to legal counsel for Akron that what may be a potential solution is if you agreed to allow us to join JED, but you indicate in your motion that it's not to be a waiver or a consent to Akron's interpretation. so it doesn't create a precedent. And I think if you do that, that's very similar to what Akron did when they agreed to allow us to have water without joining the JED and just petitioning. In fact, I have the email communication from the city of Akron, which is, I'll make part of the public record. I'll submit that to you after this meeting. But it should be in your records too, and I did send it to David Firestein earlier. I don't know if you've seen it. But Akron specifically agreed that by granting us the ability to have water, it was not at all to be a precedent for the interpretation of that JED agreement. And so in talking with Akron, they kind of said, well, we agreed to let them do it this way and didn't have to join. In fairness, I think they indicated, well, I think I can get them to agree, and just so you know that it's not a precedent, why don't they do the same thing? So again, here we are in the middle. I would ask this body to consider that. Again, the practical issue that would occur without it is we're going to be stuck with a tough decision of trying to recoup our losses and our money. Mr. Style has property that he's owned for years and can't develop. And even if someone else came in, they're going to have the same problem. It can't be developed as zone. In terms of creating a precedent also, this is a practical matter. My understanding is this is one of the last vacant pieces of undeveloped property in the PDD zoning. It's fairly small. So in terms of it having some large impact on interpretation or otherwise, it's very inconsequential. And as a practical matter, we don't have a full-time employee on site. It is a rental of units. So to the extent that someone wants to characterize that as a commercial operation, that may be up to them, and maybe in some contexts it can be, but the people that live there are residents and residing. So there really isn't, even if we're included in the JED, it's not as if there's going to be a substantial amount of revenue coming in. So I don't quite understand why it's become an issue. We're just being open and honest with you. We like this open dialogue, but we went through this conversation last time. Somehow Akron seems to believe that they want these kind of uses to be included. And so they've kind of drawn a line, and I know they've done it, I believe, also with the church. They might have made the church recently too. And so clearly, this is not something new in your community. You have a JED. There's properties that are, the reason they exist are because they're in the JED, because they provided these services. We would ask that same consideration and not be treated differently at all. The law requires equal treatment. The law requires action to be based on a legitimate governmental purpose. I can understand that the township may not appreciate or like this interpretation that's going on, but I believe when you boil it down, there's really no legitimate governmental interest to deny it. In this particular case, the township does not lose territory. The township doesn't lose any money or control over this site. There's nothing really that would occur. What the township would gain is development consistent with the zoning, economic development. And to the extent there is revenue that comes in, you get a portion of that under the JED term. I don't know if my client has anything to add, but we really do appreciate the opportunity to discuss this with you. Our timing is, it's not at a point of being critical, If you do have further questions or otherwise, we're here to answer those. We would appreciate if you make a decision this evening, included. If you believe or you have concerns about it, we would ask that you not deny it this evening and give us opportunities to address whatever issues there might be. But if you're comfortable with our position, we would ask that you move in favor of including us and allow this development and project to go forward. Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Yes, sir.
David's on.
Mr.
David, you're on the call.
Mr. Firestein, did you want to make any?
Yeah, I'm going to ask you a question, David.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just, based on their counsel coming up and claiming it's a taking, I don't think the trustees should comment. and you're our counsel, I just briefly reply that we've read the JED, and Joel, we've done the takings conversation before and I'm familiar. So in regard to the interpretation, I think that's where we're at.
Well, yeah, given where we're at, if any of the trustees had further questions for Mr. Slater now, I'd be in favor of them posing those questions now, but then my inclination would be to discuss in executive session under pending pending litigation and table this for a decision at the next scheduled meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, does anybody have any any questions from Mr. Slater or the applicant?
I'll just make a statement. I think everybody, all the trustees welcome your development here. And we welcome the project. That's not the issue.
Okay. All right, we're gonna, I will, ma'am. Ma'am, did you want to make a comment? If you do so, you'll have to walk to the podium. State your name, please.
Patricia Cosi with Redwood Living. I just would like to say that we've gone through the approvals with Copley Township, going through the approvals as far as land development, all our permitting processes, landscaping, tree preservation. We've done everything that we were told to comply with. And I guess I would just say tonight that we've done everything that we were told by code to do. And I would hope that get through this and get our and get approval to move forward so that we can have. I understand that we've done this with Richard Copley. I think you're all aware of that. And now we're going another one, as you know. And we want to be here. We love Copley. In fact, I'm a resident. I live like a half a mile away. So I get all this, and I would just hope that I understand that there's questions between the JED as far as Akron and Copley, but don't put us in the middle of that. I have to say, we have complied, and we will comply with all your ordinances, and we've done that. We have spent close to almost $500,000. Just so you know that. So I understand there's a little bit of risk, if you will, but don't put me in, okay?
Thank you very much. And as Mr. Schulte indicated, we welcome the project, and yes, you have passed all of our.
And we haven't changed anything.
Right. We're set forth exactly how we were when you started all the projects before, and we're set in the same fashion. And you did meet all the requirements, and you have Mr. Klein, we passed there, Ms. Spear, there's nothing that we needed to do variances for or anything, correct? Okay. Okay. Well, we welcome the project. That's all I can say.
All right, well, thank you for that. Thank you.
You're welcome. So with that, I would like to table my motion.
Second, Schulte.
Okay.
Vote.
We'll vote to table it. I'll call for the vote.
Yes.
Owner, yes.
To do your class?
So the motion is tabled. Okay. So with that, anything else from the board of trustees? From the board of trustees. All right. Then we'll go on to the fiscal officer's report. Ms. Pfeiffer sent an email.
Hang on, he has the voice. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I can't guarantee that. Okay. I apologize. I can't. Do we want to make a determination?
He could agree to call you if you take action. That's okay.
If you'd
I
like.
don't want you to be stuck sitting here.
Let me ask for
For
your
the meeting.
right, for your convenience, this meeting might be lengthy, and the executive session are generally lengthy as well. We can do two things. Excuse me. We can we go back into public session to talk about this. We can call you and have you on phone with us, or we can table it until the next meeting. But that makes it go to the second Tuesday in March, whichever you would prefer. We want to make it as convenient for you as possible, or you're welcome to wait as well.
I mean, we commonly agree with like the media to call them after an exec session if we come out and take action. I mean, that's how it always occurred.
On the computer? Yeah, I'm just
David?
listening to this meeting.
David, do you want to agree to contact their counsel if we, after our exec session? I guess you could contact them either way.
The subject of that little conversation there wasn't clear to me because I didn't hear the original question.
They wanted to know when we come out exec session if we're gonna take action or not, and we said we don't know, and I said we don't necessarily want you to have to stay, but offered someone would contact them. Do you want to be that person after exec session to contact them and let them know where we stand, what position we've taken or continued or taken action? You want to arrange that with John?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
Do you have a contact number for Mr. Slater?
Yeah, we've got each other's cell phones.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I'm sorry, ma'am. Yes, you may.
Thank you. Again, I would just say that we would like to get this figured out very quickly. We're purchasing land from Joe Stiles, and I have certain agreements that I have to meet. And if I'm not going to get water, then those are going to change. So I really don't have a lot of time to.
Man, that's completely understandable, and we will do our best to get you a decision tonight.
That would be great.
Okay, thank you. Okay, all right, we'll move on to the fiscal office report. Ms. Marshall, do you want to, there was an email, I think you want to explain, we're supposed to have a representative from the fiscal office here, is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Iverson is on the call.
Oh, okay.
Hi, Janet.
Hi, I'm on. I'm here. And I'll be here for the entire meeting.
Okay.
And just in case you need to refer to me for anything.
Okay, thank you for attending.
Okay.
So we have several motions here to go over for approval of the Board of Trustees. Ms. Iverson, you might mute your mic while we're talking. Somebody else, bear with us.
Have you called in also, or are you using your computer?
Okay. Ms. Iverson, are you still there?
Yes, I am here.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So we have a list of motions to approve the minutes of the meetings ranging from November 24th to February 9th. We don't have those minutes yet. The Board of Trustees don't have those minutes to review. They were They were sent back, they were sent to us yesterday, and it was sent back this morning with a list of approvals, or a list of edits on there, and I have not seen them since. Does anybody else have them? Ms. Marshall, do you have them?
Yes, I did receive corrected copies this afternoon. I believe, but I have made some suggestions for edits on the minutes yesterday. Let me think what day I'm on. I apologize. I believe it was yesterday that I made some corrections or suggestions for edits, and I believe they were all included in the packet, in the minutes that are included in your packet. So just to clarify, the first one, to approve amendment to the Board of Trustees regular meeting minutes of November 24th. We have previously approved those minutes, but there were some errors that were noted after they were printed. And so the errors that were noted after they were printed have been corrected. So I do feel that that one could be approved.
Okay.
Along with the one from December 7th. It's the same scenario. The minutes had already been approved, but there were some corrections and errors that needed to be corrected that have been corrected. So particularly for those two, we definitely could approve the amendments to those already approved minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of November 24th, 2020 and December 7th, 2020.
Second.
Any discussion or other additions or corrections? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. Kohler, yes.
Schulte, yes.
Okay. So now we're on to December 9th.
December 9th. So there were some corrections that needed to be made, having looked at them after I submitted those. It was either yesterday or this morning. They all have been made, and December 9th minutes, in my estimation, are
December 9th minutes are correct.
we could do December 9th and December 28th. Both of those.
I'm going to approve the minutes for the special meeting December 9th and the regular meeting December 28th.
Second, Schulte.
Any additions or corrections or discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote.
Kessler, yes.
Kohler, yes.
Schulte, yes. We're up to the current year.
All right, so January 12th. I do have a question on a paragraph that's in the minutes as part of the fiscal officer's report. The paragraph beginning with resolution for Fund 2111 and ending with where trustees agreed to table a motion. I've submitted some possible edits for those paragraphs that I believe the fiscal officer has chosen not to make. So I would either defer to Janet if she told you why she wasn't interested in making those, or if Michelle Holby is on the line who did the minutes, if there's any explanation, or we can wait to process those at a later time.
Michelle is on the line if she wants to speak. I don't have that information. Michelle and Linda are the ones who are working on those meeting minutes together. I haven't had any input into that.
Bill's muted.
Michelle's muted. Okay.
Yeah, she's unmuted.
So I have no input at this time since I don't have those meeting minutes in front of me.
Okay.
We can put that off to the next time.
So November 12th are not complete.
January
January
12th.
I'm sorry, January 12th, yes.
January 12th is still outstanding.
Okay.
The minutes from February 9th, I would like to have time to review. I've not reviewed those.
Okay, those are the ones that were just sent out this afternoon as well.
I believe they were sent out last Thursday, but I was not able to get to doing that.
I have two known corrections to those. And since Michelle and Janice are both on the line, or Janet are both on the line, two corrections. Number one, on the sewer path plan that the board agreed to pursue, that plan is pending a legal review that the township will not lose any legal remedy it may or may not have against our JED partner Akron. I made that clear, and everybody agreed with that at the time. Secondly, the second correction I think that needs made is trustee Colner requested that the township obtain tax records from JED to assist us in understanding the economic impact of parcels being added or removed from the JED area. And that was not reflected in the minutes either.
Okay. So Ms. Iverson, those, or Ms. Calpe, those are two that appear to be incomplete. So we'll just hold off on those until those are corrected and sent to us again. Is that okay? Okay. All right. We have a resolution before us as well. Is everybody okay with holding off on those two that need corrected?
Janet, do you want to present the resolution or would you prefer I do it?
Okay. I have that.
We're talking about the then and now.
Yes.
We have it marked as a then and now because they were 2020 invoices, although we just have received them February 16th. And there was a 2020 PO in place that covered the retainer for 9 months. And the balance of what is left in the purchase order and what we need is $22,177.22. So I'm requesting a resolution to approve that amount to pay Witchy Witchy Feuerstein for the 2020 invoices.
So move Schulte.
Second, Colner. Any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Marshall, will you call the roll?
Trustee Schulte?
Yes.
Trustee Colner?
Yes.
Trustee Hess?
Yes.
What's the resolution number, Janice?
Well, let's see. The last one, February 9th, appears to be 13, so this one is 14.
Okay.
Ms. Iverson, did you hear that? The resolution is number 2021-14.
Yes, and we will process the PO and make that payment very soon.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else for fiscal?
This is kind of fiscal. Mr. Firestein, I'm still waiting on a legal opinion as to what controls the amount of Swisscog funding that Copley's supposed to pay. Is it the allocation in the original Swisscog agreement that Copley ratified, or can a subsequent vote by the Swisscog board override the unanimous desire of the township trustees, resulting in an additional $32,000 cost to Copley? I had emailed you that question a while back.
Yeah, that I had a conversation with Lisa Miller from Barberton on that last week, and I reviewed the Swisscog document. There's no clear answer on how those costs can be accounted for and changed. So I wanted to circle back with you and kind of go over an opinion on that at your convenience.
Okay, thank you. We'll talk.
Ms. Iverson, I've got a short list of a few items that need to be addressed.
Okay.
These items have either been emailed to the fiscal officer or discussed directly with the fiscal officer, or both. And the reason I'm mentioning to you now is because we've, even though we've communicated these issues, we've not had a response.
Okay.
The first is the fiscal officer indicated that we would have the year-end financials by February 15th. We do have to schedule a budget hearing and have the township budget, the permanent budget, done by the last day of March. But we can't.
Correct.
We cannot move forward until the financials are rectified and correct from last year. Do we have an idea when that'll come? Or do you want to take a list and get back with us as well?
Well, I can tell you that we have to close 2020 by March 1st, which is Monday. So I had spoke to Linda about Friday, the 26th, that 2020 will be closed. She is very close to, she had the December bank reconciliation done, and then she had to undo it and redo it. I know she's doing that. And from after that, it should only be a couple hours more time running reports and going through the process of sending the information to the auditors through the Hinkle system.
Okay.
So Friday.
So we can go ahead and schedule a March budget hearing so we can, we should have those March 1st. Okay, thank you. Next one is, we mentioned, we'd had a discussion with the fiscal officer at the last meeting about PO number 73-2021, where monies were misappropriated from the fire department's budget for health equipment. This was in the amount of $1,864. You don't have to, I'm just bringing them to light so we can try and get these rectified. We've done several times already.
Okay, PO 73-2021.
Is it PO number 73?
It says PO number 73-2021.
Okay, fine. I'm sorry. It was so early in the year, I didn't realize.
Yeah, and the resolution you might refer to is resolution number 2021-03. In that resolution, it specifically states where these funds are supposed to come from, and they did not.
Okay. All right, that I will write down. I'm not familiar with that situation.
The next one is a $210,000 of misappropriated funds to purchase an ambulance, whereas the 2021 temporary appropriations budget had been amended by the fiscal officer without approval.
Correct. I know the situation. I don't know if that has been corrected, but I will make a note of that and find out from Linda.
The only reason I'm bringing this up is we've discussed it with the fiscal officer every time, every meeting, and in emails, and have a resolution to it.
Right.
The next one is the minutes, and the only other one was we had a question about was the investment interest. And do we want to discuss that, Ms. Morgan?
Yeah, it's a question that had come up with Linda in the closing of 2020. There was just a discrepancy in the amount that was recorded as interest earned on the Mitchell CD. There was a revenue received of $1,092, and the statement from the Mitchell CD said $564, I believe. I'm sorry, $530.69. So there was that discrepancy, and I just was hoping to also make it clear that Mitchell CD was something that was bequeathed to the township back in the 70s, I believe. And the family had donated a principal amount to be put into a CD so that that principal would stay intact, and any interest earned on that principal could be used for maintenance of the cemetery. So over the years, we have used it periodically to repair a fence or to put in some maintenance supplies at the cemetery. So if that money is not being kept in that fund, we won't be able to know how much interest has been earned. And if the interest isn't recorded accurately, then I'm not sure how we'll know. You know, we certainly don't want to dip into the principal because that is how it was bequeathed to us in the beginning. So
I will mark that down. I believe she was working on that yesterday, and that issue may be resolved, but I will note it and report back.
I don't know if that's something that needs to be done before the books are closed in 2020, or if it will just be an audit issue in 2021 when the audit comes through.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Iverson. I appreciate you being here. It wasn't our intention to make you uncomfortable. We're just trying to get this and all the other issues rectified that we're not hearing back. We're not hearing anything back on. So I appreciate that.
Okay. Yes. No problem. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else for fiscal? Okay. Ms. Marshall,
Okay, thank you. The only item I have tonight.
is your mic on?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I have two items. One is to request an executive session to discuss benefits of personnel in all departments. And then secondly, I would like to just touch base about the credit card policy procedure that we've been discussing the last few weeks. I have not received a policy or procedure from the fiscal office. So because she indicated last meeting that she was not comfortable making a procedure, I did form a committee with our administrative assistants to get a procedure put in place. And my suggestion would be that we have already amended the township policy manual to cover confidentiality with those people who are authorized to accept credit cards and credit card information from the public. There was a big discussion whether or not we would have another policy about the procedure, but I would suggest that we just put a procedure in place and get the administrative assistants working with it. It's something that's going to need to be put in place and kind of worked through in the next couple weeks. So to put it in as a policy is probably not the right procedure to follow. If we could just have it, and they've kind of come up with 8 steps as to 1 through 8.
For procedure.
Right, what to do if somebody comes to the window, what to do if somebody makes a phone call. So I would like to review that with fiscal when she's available, and then put it in place so that we could start collecting and having residents use credit cards for the transactions that we have. So
Do you want a motion to that effect, Janice?
I would appreciate it. That'd be great.
So move. We've been waiting for this since last year.
Second Schulte.
I mean,
Any other, I'm sorry, discussion?
right, it's just a simple, if someone comes to the
This is,
window, how you process the transaction. We are clear that people need to be authorized and that people need to have confidentiality when they're dealing with people's credit card numbers. I believe that if we start working the procedure, we'll find some gaps and things that we need to improve, and we can tweak it as we go. But I'd like to get that started. It's been in place since, I believe, October, and our residents should be able to use credit cards.
Ms. Iverson, what Ms. Marshall is talking about is the fiscal officer was going to do a procedure on exactly step by step on how to do this. And we
Okay.
added a policy manual, but we're not sure why, but we just could not get this procedure out of them. It is a fiscal office. We understand it is a fiscal office part of their duties, but we're going to help with the procedure and then bring it up to you, to your office. So it could be approved by Ms. Piper. Just to be clear about what we're going to do, okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Janice, time frame, I mean, next week or the week after, I think we could work on that.
Okay.
Yeah, so the people who will be dealing with it kind of went through how they will function and take credit cards and have the numbers and so forth. So they put together an 8-step process. And if I can send it to you and Linda, and if you guys can just take a brief view of it, you don't have to create anything, just say that, yeah, that probably will work and we'll try it. And then tweak it as we go, because there will be changes.
Okay. All right. That sounds fine.
Any other discussion?
Mr.
Klein, go ahead.
Yeah, Clarissa Hunt in our department has happily volunteered to have our department be the guinea pigs. If we don't want to, institute the policy for all the departments and we just want to use one department for an example, we process quite a bit between the zoning permits and applications. We'd be happy to take that on for a 2-3 week trial period and just vet out maybe some of the errors that we might encounter. So we're more than happy to take that on so everybody else doesn't have to deal with it all at the same time.
Perfect. You can coordinate that with Ms. Marshall, please.
Yeah, Clarice's been involved in the process as well, and it is really a very simple kind of thing, and it's done everywhere, so we should be able to get it.
So Bruce, you actually called Loudon by his last name that time.
I know. I screw it up all the time. I apologize. Loudon sounds like a last name. Yeah. Okay. Any other discussion? Then I'll call for the vote.
Yes.
Colner, yes.
Dressler, yes.
Okay.
That's
Thank you. Chief Bauer.
Good evening. Before I get to the first motion that you see on the agenda, if I could have a little bit of latitude, I would like to request a 60-day leave of absence for one of our part-time firefighters named Cody Duncan, so that he could attend to some family issues. He'd like that to be effective March 1st. Obviously, since the next trustee meeting isn't until after that, I would appreciate it if the board would entertain that motion.
So move Schulte.
Second, Kohler. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote.
Dressel, yes.
Kohler, yes.
Schulte, yes.
Thank you, very much appreciated. And the only other thing before the motion beforehand is I'll ask for executive session to discuss hiring part-time personnel in the fire department. So without reading all the words you see on the PowerPoint and on the agenda, this is something we do every year, something we refer to as our IMAC agreement. It's somewhat of a formality. By Ohio Revised Code, all political subdivisions are part of that intrastate mutual aid compact, and it falls under more broad Ohio Revised Code and a congressional act that goes back to the 1960s, and that is EMAC. At any rate, all this does is set forth what rates we are going to be reimbursed for if we send our personnel or equipment out of state for usually natural disasters. These are instances where not only state resources are mobilized, but also federal resources are mobilized. Something we do every year. And this gives us permission to have Ms. Marshall sign the agreement, send it to our local emergency management, and then they send it on to the state coordinator.
So move Schulte.
Second, Kohler. Any discussion? All right, call for the vote.
Dressel, yes.
Kohler, yes.
Schulte, yes.
Thank you. And that's all I have for the board, unless the board has any questions or comments for me.
Any questions for Chief Bauer?
Just a quick comment. Thank you for securing collection of the bad debts regarding the EMS services.
Oh, no problem. I'm glad we were able
Well
to get
done.
that moving. Yeah, I think that was
Well done.
Do we know that those funds are getting to the fire department's budget?
As long as yes, I believe they are, because they're going through the regular ambulance billing process. So
It'll be a part of that.
it's just part of the, yes. Exactly.
Life force.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Chief Meyer.
Thank you. I really don't have any business this evening, other than you should have before you the annual report for the Copley Police Department for 2020. Just officially present that to you this evening. Pretty encompassing. It's pretty self-explanatory. After you go through that, if you so desire, you can ask me any questions. But briefly, the report addresses the personnel situation, the police fleet. There's a notation as to how we changed things this year due to COVID. We also, as you know, added an officer to a new task force. We've always had one officer assigned to the Summit County Drug Unit, which is a multi-jurisdictional task force. But this year, we also assigned an officer to the Onset Task Force, which is a drug and smuggling task force that comes under the authority of the Ohio Organized Crime Investigations Commission. Our officer assigned to that has only been with that unit since April, which is when that unit started. And there's a notation there as to some of the success they've had. All of the Ohio Organized Crime Task Force together did a tremendous job in Ohio, but just the one that we're assigned to that addresses situations in Summit and Medina County seized 37 pounds of cocaine, 11 pounds of fentanyl, 24 pounds of methamphetamines. Those drugs having an estimated total street value of $3,487 and roughly. They also confiscated 23 firearms, seized over $2 million in cash, which is in a holding pattern right now to determine if that money will be returned back to us in the form of legal forfeiture. And also 19 persons were indicted on a total of 45 charges. So our participation in that task force has been very successful. Also in there, I speak about our K-9 unit. As you know, our former K-9, Nico, was retired last year, and our K-9 Chip has taken his place. We also had approximately 15,000 calls last year in the police department. And just real briefly, I'll go over this quickly. There was a 25% decrease in alarm drops, which would be expected with COVID. People were home, and so they were not leaving their home, and their alarms were not going off. We had a 99% increase in property checks of businesses and that sort of thing, probably because we're checking vacant buildings or buildings that are occupied because people are working from home. 38% increase in domestic arguments because folks are at home bunched up next to each other. 67% increase in fights, and that's fights all over in hotels and wherever the case may be. 65% decrease in auto lockouts. Auto lockouts is one of the things we discontinued doing. So we didn't put our officers in harm's way. They'd be in close contact with folks that might spread COVID because that is a service that they can get through private means right now, unless there's extenuating circumstances, a child locked in a car or something like that. We had a 3% increase in shopliftings, and most of that came out of Home Depot because I was wondering why shopliftings went up. Checked into that and found out that Home Depot got a new loss prevention officer who's a retired policeman who just doesn't give up, and he just keeps going. So they probably were experiencing a lot of shopliftings there through the years that went undetected until they got somebody on board that really cares about what he's doing. And it goes on and on. We did have a decrease in traffic complaints, a decrease in traffic crashes, a decrease in private property crashes, probably because less people out driving around during COVID. Decrease in persons who were wanted and arrested because other agencies were not taking people that we arrested on or stopped on their warrants. And we were not going to pick up people on our warrants if they were for simple charges like failure to appear in court on a simple traffic charge. So there was probably about a 20% decrease in calls. There's some notations in there that you can go through and gives you an idea of the calls we did, the times of the day, that sort of thing. I will say through the year, our highest call volume was between noon and 7 p.m. on average, and our lowest call volume was between 2 a.m. and 7 a.m. on average every day. So there's a lot of information in there. Should you have any questions, feel free to ask me, but that pretty much gives you an idea of what we did throughout the year. Other than that, the only thing I have is just to remind everybody that I do have tabled a proposal for the purchase of dash cameras for our police cruisers to replace the existing ones. I just don't want that to be forgotten as we get down the road. And this week, as I notified all of you, we had a life-saving incident just yesterday at our middle school when our school resource officer, Ben Campbell, who actually was splitting his time between both the high school and the middle school yesterday because they didn't have sufficient coverage, was in the right place at the right time. He went into the middle school and went into the cafeteria at lunchtime. And as he walked in, he was just kind of standing there when a child started choking on a large piece of food. And the child ran over to Ben and signaled that he was choking, and he was clearly in distress. And it was a full choking incident where the child couldn't talk, couldn't breathe. Very critical situation. And Ben performed the Heimlich maneuver, which didn't work. And then he did some back thrusts and eventually dislodged that. Saved the child's life. We'll be awarding Ben a commendation later. That has just been written up, and we'll probably address that at the next meeting. But we'll probably also have another one. We had 3 officers who were at one of our hotels in one of those strange incidents. They were investigating a suspicious death. And while they were investigating the death, family members of the deceased showed up, which is always a difficult situation when the message gets out. They start showing up. They want answers. They kind of were there. The officers need the opportunity to work. And one of them became extremely agitated and emotional, punched out a window and a door. It's one of those heavy duty windows. Bruce will know what I'm talking about. Heavy duty glass with the wire in it to prevent the window from failing during a fire, which means it was a very heavy and sharp glass. Put his arm through there and cut his arm so deeply that he cut an artery. And they said there was blood everywhere on the ceiling, all over the hallway, everything. If they wouldn't have been there, he might not have survived just from the amount of time it would have taken somebody to dial 911 and get emergency services there. So 3 officers immediately administered him first aid and applied a tourniquet that each of the officers has with them, and saved his life, and he can be transported to a hospital. So that's all I have for this evening.
I've got a couple of comments. First of all, I heard that Officer Campbell was going to be on Channel 5 News tonight. So I obviously we're here. So if anybody gets a chance to go back and look at that on Channel 5's website, it might be on there.
The reporter just sent me the link.
Okay.
It apparently was on there, and I wasn't able to listen to it. I watched it. It looked like it was a nice presentation. Interviewed the child, interviewed the child's father. It looks like they interviewed a couple of the teachers or the principals and Ben. And I did receive a call from the child's father today, and that will be, I'll tell you a little bit more about that when we give Ben a commendation for his actions, because that was kind of telling. I don't want to go through that right now.
Okay. Another comment you made about the dash cams. I want to let you know that that is, for your office, that is foremost on my calendar or my radar. We need them. I don't want to be without them. But we can't make any purchases until we get last year's budget finished or finances knowing, so we can do this year's budget. I apologize. We're trying to get them as soon as we can. As soon as the fiscal officer gets that information to us, we'll be set.
I understand. I just wanted to make sure that
I know.
that we know and where it's still a table item.
I do not want our officers without dash cams. The third thing is, you made a mention in their email to us about police officers being first responders, about the officer that put a tourniquet on that gentleman and saved his life. I want to let you know that I have spoke at the Summit County Health Department, and I have sent letters to the Ohio Health Department as an elected official asking for them to move police officers into the first responders bracket so they can get their vaccines. It is not, the city associations has done the same thing. So far, we have not got any motion on it, but I am trying.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else for Chief Meyer?
Chief, I have one question. The calls to, the number of calls to our hotels, how does that compare to hotels in general? Do you have any reference points?
No, because there's nothing that's really advertised or out there, but as you can see, the one hotel is the one that we've taken legal action against, and the numbers of calls there have increased significantly over the years. And that hotel generated almost twice as many calls as the property next door to it. And I noted that the property next door is actually 2 hotels in the same property, so our records management system doesn't break that out into 2 separate groups of information. It lumps them together for that address. So 2 hotels generated that were second, less than half or about half of the one. And that we've been watching those calls at all the hotels through the years, and they've been increasing. And as I indicated before, they increased significantly in 2020, due in part to the COVID situation, where folks were going to hotels for the purpose of parties and that sort of thing. And many of the hotels in the area, not just in Copley, but in the surrounding communities, reduced their room rates in an effort to recoup lost business, which created a problem.
It would just be good to get a reference point.
Okay. And I can try, and I
know what the norm
appreciate
is.
that comment, because I can try to see if some of these other communities break out some of that and see what they say.
Go to Vito, go whoever, go to a neighboring community and see if they have any kind of information similar. Right?
Okay.
This is great information. I'm just curious how it compares.
Okay.
Anything else? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Mitchell.
Thanks, buddy.
Good evening. The only business I have for the board tonight is requesting a motion granting me permission to submit the, excuse me, the 2020 EPA NPDES report. This is the annual report that we submit to the EPA that covers all of the mechanisms that we have in place to help prevent water pollution. NPDES is National Pollution Detection and Elimination System. It's required to submit this every year, due by the end of March. I've been fortunate enough to get all of the information needed to submit the report at this time.
So move Schulte.
Second, Dressler.
Any discussion?
No. Okay.
Okay. Hearing none, I'll call for the vote.
Dressler, yes.
Colner, yes.
Schulte, yes.
Thank you very much. With that, the only other business I have is a request an executive session for hiring of personnel in the service department.
Anything further for Mr. Mitchell? Good job sticking up with the weather this,
Thank
it's been
you.
a,
Troops have been working pretty hard. I think
Yeah.
we've worked every holiday. Christmas, New Year's, Martin Luther King Day,
President's Day.
President's Day. We've been out. We've actually almost met our 80% minimum commitment for the salt purchase for this year. So all I need to buy is about 30 more tons and we're good. And hopefully I won't have to use it.
Janice's birthday too, with us on the holiday, but it's gonna be.
It
It should
depends
be.
on
For
what
her,
day that
it's
is.
gonna
We
be an
can make
extra
that
day
a
off
local
pretty soon.
holiday. But thank you. I'll pass that on to the troops.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Appreciate
sir.
that. Okay, anything else? Okay. Mr. Klein. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My first request is a resolution recognizing April 30th, 2021 as Arbor Day and declaring a celebration in honor of Arbor Day on April 30th and May 1st of 2021. So the resolution you should have before you would be to, again, as I said, recognize Arbor Day, and then also supported by the Carl Harp Nursery. Carl Harp has provided the seedlings the last couple years. He holds about 100 in at his nursery to allow them to grow, to be a little bit more exciting for us to hand out. So he's been very supportive and helpful in the assistance of the Arbor Day celebrations. Also in that resolution, you'll see a request for a blanket certificate for $4,000. That would be to purchase the seedlings, all the materials that we would plan to do for the Arbor Day celebrations and distribution of that. That would be utilizing the tree fund and portion of those funds that were accounted for in the temporary appropriations. And that's all I have on the resolution, unless there's other questions from the board.
So move, Colner.
Second, Dressler.
Discussion. Mr. Klein, is that a similar amount that we spend on this every year from the tree fund?
Yes, yeah. So I was only here for the one that we put on this year, which was, or excuse me, in 2020, which was later in the year. But I think we like to budget around 3,000 to 4,000. So I think typically, actually, it might be larger than that with COVID. We've tried to dampen the events a little bit and not done as much of a kickoff at the park and stuff like that. So we're planning to do a giveaway here at Town Hall on Friday, and then Saturday do a planting at the park. With some giveaways. We're doing a competition with a coloring document for the younger kids. We're also going to do a competition for the winners. We'll get trees and other things like that, and shirts, and just some small items to entice them. And it'll be a lot of education about different careers related to Arbor Day and tree stuff like that. So it's been a real team effort. I would definitely like to give credit to Shauna and Clarissa in our department, as well as the Architectural Review Board for their assistance.
And one other question, I think you said it, I want to be clear, funds are available in the temporary appropriations budget.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion?
Wish I had a calendar year budget, but since it's the same as prior years, gives me some comfort.
All right, Ms. Marshall, will you call the roll, please?
Trustee Schulte?
Yes.
Trustee Colvin?
Yes.
Thank you. On the same note, motion to accept and acknowledge receipt of the 2020 Tree City USA designation and growth award. So we have been recognized as a Tree City USA for our efforts in 2020. And we are also being awarded a growth award through the Arbor Day Foundation. This is the first year for this. This is awarded to communities that demonstrate higher level of tree care and community engagement throughout the year. So I can't take really hardly any credit for this at all. Shauna does a tremendous job applying for this, documenting this, doing all the promotion. Clarissa does a lot of social media work and getting the word out there and doing some engagement. And also the Architectural Review Board, who serves as our tree commission at this time, do a lot of involvement outside of the commission meetings. So all the credit to them for keeping up with that and that designation. It's really nice to have. So we're one of the few townships, I believe, that have that.
So move Schulte.
Second, Dressler.
Any discussion?
Do you have any money with that?
4,000?
Still looking at that.
It does help in some grants, though. Would that be
Yeah,
a,
yeah, there are some grants and different programs through it. They will give us materials. It's a nice resource to have for marketing and stuff like that.
okay. So I'll call for the vote.
Dressel, yes.
Colner, yes.
Schulte, yes.
Thank you. My next request is a motion granting permission to enter into a designation agreement with the Copley Community Improvement Corporation, also known as the CIC. So I brought this to the board's attention several weeks ago. This is a designation agreement that outlines the relationship between the board and the CIC. Again, when the board does a designation for a CIC in a township setting as the Agency for Economic Development, this designation agreement follows. So this wouldn't be unique to Copley Township. Every township CIC that I've really come across that has the same designation as we do, or I should say as the CIC does, has this agreement in place. So this would just help formalize that relationship, help denote how property is to be transferred if the township would like to transfer or sell property to the CIC. It just helps facilitate and organize how that relationship works. It also accepts the acknowledgement of a economic development plan, which the CIC has formed a strategic plan, which I think is a good foundation to attach to the agreement. As the CIC moves along and as the trustees move along and have time to evaluate and come up with different interests, we can still amend the plan as we go. So it's by no means set in stone. This has also been reviewed and approved as to form by our legal counsel.
So move, Colner.
Second, Schulte.
Discussion?
Is there anything in here that talks about, for example, facade grants and things like that? Is that discussed in here?
It really doesn't talk about grants. It really just focuses on, it's verbatim, the Ohio Revised Code 1724, what CIC can do and its powers. And then it basically includes the language that says how the CIC is to coordinate with the donation, sell land, or buying, selling, transferring land between the township. The CIC has all within its rights to continue to do grants, and that's been a super successful program. This year, we really organized it. We've got basically a scoring system. We've got a cycle, and good and bad, we're getting a lot of interest from businesses. The word is definitely spreading on the grant program, and we see that all across the CICs as well.
But there's no need to incorporate that language in here.
No,
Per se,
no.
designation. Okay.
There is language in the CIC's policies about grants.
Yeah.
And they have awarded some.
Correct. Yep. Yeah, we've like I said, it's been really, it's a good and bad problem, but just not enough money, but a lot of interest. So
Section 4 seems to indicate that this would make the CIC the exclusive entity to sell or lease township-owned properties. And I just think that really the word non-exclusive should be added in that paragraph.
sure.
In that section.
I think David might be on the call, maybe able to weigh in a little bit on the interpretation of that.
I'm
but
sorry I
think-
didn't get that thought to you ahead of time, but
No, it's okay. Yeah, like I said, most of that, like I'd say 90% of that language is verbatim from the Ohio
Okay.
Revised Code and the bylaw, or I should say the Articles of Incorporation for the CIC. There's just a few things in there that are added in the agreement about utilizing the relationship between the two and what we can and can't do.
I think
David.
in that
Trustee-
case,
Yep,
go ahead, Mr. Firestein.
sure. Trustee Schulte, you're talking about section 4, the authorization to sell or lease township-owned property.
yes, sir.
And is your concern that that makes the CIC the exclusive recipient of any township-owned property?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I don't read it that way. It's the first sentence is just authorizing the sale or lease of any real property to the CIC. So I look at this agreement as being, again, some language prescribed by the revised code and kind of an operating agreement, so to speak, between the township and the CIC. But if there's, this is the first I heard of that question, I could look at it a little bit more if you wanted to wait to act on it. But I did review this and think it was in good shape as is.
Okay, then I'll withdraw my comment.
Yeah, it's a good comment, but I think we're covered. Yeah,
Okay.
I think the township still has there's a section in here that just says like, I think it's a few times in here that, this does not, put the township in a position to do anything certain. It's just basically saying, the CIC can now work with the township in this capacity.
So I'll make a comment to my colleagues. So as a member of the CIC board often has questions about what they want to know what the township is asking them to do, or are they do it in conjunction with township desires? They ask that typically every time there is a sale or purchase of a property or moving forward with some project that is bringing economic development or betterment to the township. This document clears all those muddy waters, and we really do need it to get them up on their own feet and moving on their own. I'm a proponent for it. Any other comments? Yeah, that's just for a motion. I'll call for the vote. Colner, yes.
Schulte, yes.
Thank you. A couple more things real quick for discussion. Water and sewer update. So based on previous discussions at the trustee meetings as regarding sewer infrastructure, funding scenarios, project scenarios, we're continuing to set up meetings internally to start doing a little legwork to prepare for how that project's laid out, what we need to do in-house in terms of scheduling, meeting with different agencies, local agencies. One example is, when we look at installing sewer, where is it going to be located, permitting through, state, county right away, different things like that. So we're facilitating a lot of that here in-house as we speak, based on those previous discussions. As it relates to Sunset Drive, we have an agreement in hand from Mr. Firestein for the Autobahn property that was kind of holding up that project moving forward. So credit to Mr. Firestein. That was kind of a complicated issue to put together. So he did a lot of legwork and really put together a pretty solid agreement. So we're wrapping up. I sent him some exhibits that we'll include in the agreement. So I hope in the next, hopefully probably sometime this week or next, get that before the property owner to get his approval and have that back before the board. And that will give us an opportunity to move forward with the board's approval on CISO and Sunset Drive improvements as well.
On sewer, we had talked about running the sewer through the streets that we mentioned as well. And I'm just curious, have we or should we look at creating our own sewer district? It seems like under the revised code, I think it's 6119 or something like that you could do that.
We have discussed that previously at the time.
And I guess my point on that is if we're going to spend,
didn't seem to be the way to go, but
well, if we're going to incur millions of dollars to build sewers, I don't think we should just give those improvements to another political subdivision. Especially if we form our own sewer district, perhaps it gives us some financing alternatives to fund those sewers. And I think in your preliminary discussions on looking at this, Loudon and Janice, I think that's something that we have to explore.
Yeah, I think as Ms. Trustee Dressler alluded to, I think we do have some information in-house on that already.
it was discussed. I don't remember the reasons for what we didn't do offhand. We have, it's discussed, but it's been a few years.
Okay.
Well, and probably some of the scale of what we're looking at doing might fit better with that. I'd be happy to look into that.
And now we have a more defined plan. We know what the district would be.
Yeah, because before it wasn't really specified what we were going to do. We just discussed having a district.
Right.
I think at the time there was a question legally with the JED and what that looked like. And I believe the two legal counsels were at the time going to kind of confer and see what they came up with. And I'm not sure we got past that. So.
Well said, Janice. Okay. We won't go into the lack of meetings anymore.
Correctly said.
But I think that's something we have to look at. And along with that, if you're going to form your own sewer district, of course, then you have to look at, okay, this is going to dump out to somebody unless we build our own treatment facility.
Right.
I would think that the EPA would have some guidance and probably some requirements that another jurisdiction accept our poo, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously common to when you look at the county example, obviously that goes into the city's treatment plant. So it's
Right.
common for jurisdictions to share that. I'd be happy to look into it, put a package
Yeah.
or some information together for the board on the.
Thanks,
feasibility of it. Of course. Yeah, again, just, continuing to plug away in-house on looking at those utilities things on a weekly basis. Last thing I wanted to bring up is broadband. Trustee Schulte had sent me some information from OTA and asked me to look into that and report back. So the governor has proposed in his budget $250 million towards broadband expansion. And there are also House Bill 2 and Senate Bill 8. They're kind of companion bills that look at broadband expansion in underserved or unserved areas. So doing a little bit of research and looking at the FCC maps and seeing how we are serviced. Again, good and bad. I think the township is actually pretty well positioned in terms of underserved or unserved. We really don't have an area that's underserved, but we have an area, we don't have an area that's unserved. We have some areas, very small areas that are unserved maybe by a category. But generally, I think we're pretty good on that because pretty much the whole township has almost 2 or 3 providers that provide up to 25 and above megabits per second. So we're actually pretty good in terms of meeting some of these criterion for these grant applications that will be coming out of these $250 million. That I kind of sound that right. So
Yeah, you danced around it. I went completely in a circle. I'm
the
sorry.
money that's going to be allocated to this, from everything I've been able to read thus far, these House bills are over my head, to be honest. They're just written in a very legal sense. They seem to be targeted at either unserved areas, which are these basically no internet service, or underserved, which is either like 0 to 10 or below 25 megabits per second.
DSL
Yeah,
is what those are.
probably. So
Just phone
the
lines.
township actually, in its entirety, has 3 providers, or at least 2, that serve 20 megabits per second over the whole township. So I don't think we're going to be maybe at the front of these grant applications or a community that is really meeting these. If you look at a map and you look at southeastern Ohio, it's very different on the map. With that being said, I'm just going to continue to look at it and see what opportunities are there, because I think some of these grants will be for broadband providers and last mile. So if a broadband provider in the community has only enough funds to fund 90% of the project, this will be a revenue source for them to apply to finish the project out. So I don't know if that's going to apply to all areas or just those underserved and unserved areas. So I'll continue to look at that, but that's the brief update.
Thank you. What about, I also asked if you would take a look at Springfield and Coventry Township jet areas to see if they had a similar problem with commercial properties paying jet taxes and not receiving sanitary sewers, or if that is exclusive to Copley.
So I got through, I actually haven't got to Springfield or Coventry. I'm actually listening to the JED meetings as aside, just getting information on that discussion. But I looked at the Bath Fair Lawn, Akron JED, and it appears that pretty much all that area is actually serviced by Summit County Sewer. So that seems to be well encompassed and serviced in its entirety. But yeah, I apologize, I don't have that complete yet, but I will work on getting that. I have looked at their maps. I believe Springfield is rather small. It surrounds the airport down there. So I think ours is pretty unique in its size and its dispersion.
It's a critical data point in my mind. If Copley is exclusive in having properties that are subject to JED taxes that don't have sewer, or if we're one of many, and that changes my perspective on things a little bit. So it's something I need to know, Loudon, in order to really vote on issues that are coming before us as early as this evening.
I will keep you updated on that.
Any feedback on conversations with the targets that we talked about last week, 2 weeks ago?
Target businesses?
Yes, sir.
Specifically with Sheets, they are still looking at the area. Unfortunately, we don't have a site their size and they're that close. I've pushed for other sites in the Montrose area, but they're not as close as they would like to I-77. And again, another site that they've looked at is not the zoning classification. But again, they can also apply for rezoning, but they've got to, move forward with that. So I reached out to the realtor. They're still looking in the area, but we just don't have a site that's for sale that meets their demands. So I've let them know that, we're interested in trying to see if we have a site, but we'll keep you posted on that. I know we mentioned the potential Earth Fare, the grocery chain. So that's also a complicated issue. They went into bankruptcy and they were bought out by several different companies, purchased 12 stores here, 10 stores there. So I'm working with the actual the zoning department in North Canton to find the contact for that one, to see if they're representing the Ohio chain as well. So haven't heard back from her on the contact on that.
One last question, and I know you really enjoy our time together.
I do. I'll bring a bar stool up there next time.
Nice. Back in January, you brought up the need to fix the sidewalk that's on Cleveland Mousen Road from the middle school to the circle. And I questioned if that was county responsibility since it's in the county right away, or if it's our responsibility. Do we have an answer?
Yeah, I think so. So we actually met with Mr. Firestein, Ms. Marshall and I, and talked about this. The Ohio Revised Code allows the county and the township to assess property owners the construction of sidewalk. And then they're responsible to maintain it.
They being the county and the township?
Either one can.
Okay.
Either one can.
Right.
Again, in this case, I don't think there's any responsible party at this time. The sidewalk has been in place for many, many years. I think we've got to look at different options, and I'd be happy to start the process with. And I've spoken with several of the property owners, looking at possibly the assessment method if it's an important sidewalk that we want to look at. Again, it's a relatively low cost and a good time to look at the sidewalk. So breaking it out, and assessing the property owners over time we can argue the benefits to them, the aesthetic improvements and safety and all that and so forth. So, I think it's not necessarily as clear because I think it's a unique situation because of how long the sidewalk's been in place and when it was installed. But it is not necessarily, at least in my opinion, that it's the county's responsibility to repair it just because it's in there.
Okay, so.
All right, let me.
Yeah, go ahead.
I spoke, Tim Boley, are you on? You want to unmute him? TV, I think.
I'm here.
Yeah, I spoke. The Summit County engineer does not pay to install sidewalks nor to take care of the sidewalks.
We do not install them or maintain them.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it does fall back on the property owners to maintain the sidewalk.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, Loudon summarized it well, but it's revised code 5543.10 governs construction and maintenance of sidewalks. And of course, if the county wants to install and maintain a sidewalk, it can. And of course, if the township wants to maintain or install a sidewalk, it can. But in the absence of either of those parties stepping forward and saying they want to do it, then it falls to assessing adjacent property owners. And there's a process in the revised code that governs that in terms of giving notice through a newspaper and putting it before the public before voting is had on it. So that's kind of our option.
Okay. I'm done, sorry.
What's that?
I'm done, I'm out of questions, I'm sorry.
Along those lines then, so we would need to decide as a township if that's something we want to pursue, is that sidewalk, and I mean, now is the time to do it because construction is going to be happening.
Yeah.
So if we do want to replace it, it would be a choice of the township to pay for it, the township to pay for it and then assess, or the township to pay for it and try to get the property owners to volunteer to pay for it.
Well, that was there's a proposal was on the board. It was under 50,000, right, Tim? For us, the county would install, or that's a tentative. You didn't have an actual bid, but
Yeah, it was a
$47,000 to
and I think
replace that sidewalk, and then the question of ongoing maintenance.
And as well, it's also not an all or nothing proposition. So if there was an appetite for some but not all, that would be possible as well.
I think there could be an opportunity for there to be an agreement between the township and the property owners to put the responsibility to maintain back on the property owner. That's something similar to what happened with the new sidewalk path that went on State Route 18. That is ODOT right away. Bath Township led that project and installed that path. They have an agreement with ODOT where Bath does assume responsibility for it, yet they also have an agreement with each property owner that those property owners shall be responsible for it. Basically, it keeps ODOT off the hook for maintaining that sidewalk. Ultimately, Bath does put that responsibility back on the property owner, those individual lots, to maintain that sidewalk.
So once it's in, so we would pay the upfront cost is what you're telling Tim, and then ongoing maintenance would be on the individual property owners.
Yeah, I wouldn't suggest that the township maintain that. We don't typically maintain sidewalks either, but we would, fall back in the revised code and work on agreements as Tim alluded to.
And Tim, did I hear you right that the county doesn't maintain any sidewalks and doesn't pay for any sidewalks or repair any sidewalks in the entire county?
I'm trying to think of any situations that we have any, and I cannot think of any that we do maintain.
This could be a great opportunity to get into the business.
I'm still looking to get into that. Trying to figure out how old that sidewalk is. We were questioning that could have been when that was a state route, possibly. I'm not quite certain when the sidewalk did go in, but it could have been when that was old 21.
I guess I'm thinking that since Cleveland Massillon's going to be widened and improved by the county anyway, maybe there might be some cost sharing that the county would endeavor in putting this in with us.
Well, regardless,
I've asked.
Yeah.
We've asked several times, but we can.
Did you ask him?
Yeah, I asked him. He said no.
He said no? Okay. Then I won't put you on the spot again.
I can tell you, Mr. Klein, I am supportive of doing something with that sidewalk. I've asked several Eagle Scouts to do, or Eagle Scout perspective, to take it on as a project. It's not happened yet, but if we can do something there, if you can come to a plan or a couple plans that we could approve, if we can afford it, I would be willing to fixing that.
Okay. Yeah. Again, I just stress it's a great opportunity while contractors are out there opened up. So we'll put some proposals together
For the next meeting?
Yeah, I can put it together for the next meeting. So
Thank you.
Okay.
No, I really am done.
Anything else?
Well, I wanted to engage Tim since he was on the phone. He had already explained.
Anything else for
They
Mr.
would
Klein?
pay. That was the question was he would pay.
Mr. Klein, you're welcome to sit down. Thank you. Okay, any old business? Any old business?
Yeah, one item, last meeting, Bruce, you wanted us to request JED tax records from Akron, so we could find out the economic impact of adding and deleting parcels.
Yes.
And I found an opportunity to reach out to Akron and ask for those records, as you saw. And they said that despite the fact that the township trustees are members of the JED board, we can't be shown any of the revenue records. Interesting. So again, Mr. Firestein, waiting on a legal opinion from you. Does the JED board, AKA the Copley Township trustees, have authority to obtain records from the agency that works for us?
Yeah, I looked at that. I've got the JED agreement here in front of me. There was nothing in the original JED agreement that covered sharing of information or open records of that nature. I read the opinion from the Akron Law Department that you passed along, and was thinking of that we can reach out to them and find out what their specific issue is, because the reason that they objected to providing that information was a privacy concern. that I think we could alleviate with a non-disclosure agreement between the parties, for attorneys and trustees eyes only type agreement. So I thought that would probably be something worth exploring before we go much further along with them.
And that's the last email I recall seeing about that. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we'll keep that on the radar.
So Bruce, do you want him to explore that then?
Absolutely. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think we answered that.
Go ahead.
Any other old business? Any new business? Any correspondence?
I did receive 2 emails.
Yes, please.
One email is from John and Tammy Evelyn. Good afternoon, Mrs. Marshall. I am submitting this email to you as Township Administrator and Linda Piper as a Fiscal Officer. Please consider this as a public information request pursuant to the requirements of the Freedom of Information Act. I'm requesting the following information. A list of all educational, informative, and training activities pertaining to the duties of a Township Fiscal Officer in the state of Ohio that Linda Piper participate in since being appointed as Copley Township Fiscal Officer on May 10, 2016. A list of all educational, informative, and training opportunities pertaining to the duties of a Township Fiscal Officer in the state of Ohio that Linda Piper has participated in since being appointed as Copley Township Fiscal Officer on May 10, 2016. It is my understanding that Ohio offers various resources on educating fiscal officers on the duties of the position. Curious to see what percentage of these resources Mrs. Piper has taken advantage of. Please return this information in an electronic format via my email address.
And that's forwarded to Ms. Piper. She's in charge of public records. Okay. And it's Ms. Piper's, that falls under her records, is that correct?
Yeah, all public records do go through the fiscal office.
Okay.
Then I believe, Mr. Colby, you received correspondence from Alex Lieberman.
Ms. Marshall, can I interrupt? He requested that that record not be read into the minutes. He did.
Any other? I'm sorry.
I received a phone call from the Beacon Journal inquiring if the fiscal officer is competent and capable of performing her duties. I indicated she has our complete support, but I emphasized our need to get accurate and timely financials and accurate and timely minutes.
I want to make a comment. There's been some written correspondence about the fiscal officer. There's been some social media information placed. There's a lot of, or several members, people on the virtual meeting, and I want to, in the minutes as well. I want to make it clear that under the Ohio Revised Code, the fiscal officer is completely separate from the Board of Trustees and is elected by the people. So with that, the Board of Trustees has no power to reprimand, discipline, make demands, or remove from office the fiscal officer. So there is some in the Ohio Revised Code, section 507. It talks about how that can happen, but it's not a place for the trustees to take charge of until certain until the 507 steps have been met. But I want to make it clear again that there's a complete separation between the Board of Trustees as elected officials and the fiscal officer as elected officials. All right, any other correspondence? We do have a couple of guests here. Any business from the floor? Gentlemen, did you have anything from the floor? If you want to, sir, if you want to address, you have to come to the podium. You'll have to state, and one at a time, please. You'll have to state your name and address to show that you're a township resident.
My name is Ryan Corley. Address is 1105 Oak Tree Road.
Good, sir.
Awesome. My apologies. This time being,
Well, thank you for attending.
yeah, this is fantastic. It's been enlightening to be a part of. So, basically, I've had some correspondence with Mr. Colner here, just sort of in light of COVID and the way everything is now. I chair the Copley Band-Sing Committee, along with Lee here and several other members. Basically, we're just looking to get sort of the trustees' blessing to move forward this summer. I forwarded over sort of some new things that we're going to do, steps that we're going to take to make sure that everyone is as safe as we can ensure. Ultimately, it's up to everyone to do their part, as we've all seen. So,
Sir, would you like to briefly bullet point the steps that you put in to the other board members? I'd appreciate it.
yeah.
So just so you know, we had a telephone conversation, and they're doing some things that are going to be COVID safe, but they want to have our support for this year's bandstand, and they want to start in July and some other things. I'll let you finish, sir.
Yeah. Thank you for buying me a few seconds there. So normally we start in June and roll through to August, given the time to be able to get vaccines out, just because we have an older audience. So to give everybody as much time as possible to get that implemented, we're looking at our first concert being July 7th and running through August 15th. The other major change that we are doing this year is, in the past, if we've had inclement weather, we would notify the band, notify the high school custodian, and we'd move inside. We're just, if it rains, if it's going to be terrible weather, we'll know far enough in advance, and we'll cancel. And just in staying outdoors, not bringing people indoors, not compromising sanitary conditions or whatever in the high school. So those are the two big things. Our food vendor, I have some good discussions with her. They're taking all the necessary steps to do what they need to do. We had talked back and forth about whether we should have food or not have food, and I think it would be fine to do it given the necessary precautions and steps. She'll have sanitizer. She would have a setup to where, if you got a hot dog or a hamburger, you would go and put all your condiments on. None of that. You tell them what you want, they do it, they give it back to you. So she's on board with all of that, taking care of all of those things. Obviously, as long as it's mandated, we're wearing masks when we do our collections and all that different stuff. So, we did meet as a committee, and this is sort of what we came up with. And yeah, again, just looking for you guys' blessing.
We normally budget about $20,000 for this.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't spend it last year. We need to authorize the money basically for them, and then the rest they just place.
We also have to open the park for them as well.
The park or the
parks
circle?
are open.
The circle.
I know.
Well, I consider the circle is part of the park. So I will brief the colleagues on my attendance to the Summit County Emergency Management Agency meetings that we do weekly, now bi-weekly. The Summit County Health Department is leading us to believe, they're hopeful that everybody who wants to have a vaccine will have had it by July. So they're hoping to get some normalcy back, although there's been some announcements that we might be wearing masks for another year or so. But because of variants of the COVID-19, but they're hoping to get things back together by early part of the summer. And you'll see that the COVID numbers are dropping drastically now that people are getting vaccines. So in discussions I've had, I support this. Just so you folks know.
And on the financial end of it, really, we're just taking this as step one, not being assumptive in anything. And hopefully in leaving here, having that blessing, then we'll get together, we get a lineup going, and then kind of that, how it's always been. We'll
Propose a budget.
Yep, propose a budget. It's going to obviously be reduced. We're cutting out quite a few. So it won't be that typical 18 to 20 that it's been. We're looking like in 10 to 12.
Just so you have clear direction, I'm going to make a motion in here in a minute to support the bandstand, although we will not be able to give you clear clarification on the budget amount until have you heard before, our budgets are a little bit behind.
Yeah.
So we can't spend money until we know we have it enough to budget it.
Certainly.
So with that, I'll make a motion that we support the band and get a budget to them as soon as we can, the bandstand committee.
I'd like to amend that motion.
Good.
I'd like to support the band events at the Circle beginning after July 4th.
Also amend my motion.
Second.
Okay. Any other? Okay, I'll call for the vote.
Dressler, yes.
Colner, yes.
Schulte, yes.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic. We'll be back in a few weeks.
Thank you very much. It'll be, probably we'll have our budget done by the fourth Tuesday in March, I'm guessing. Okay. All right. We're hopeful. We have to have it in by the end of March, but we don't have the numbers yet. So. Thank you.
Along those same lines, would you want to discuss having Heritage Days?
Indeed.
Pardon me?
Indeed.
Indeed. So the committee chair has contacted me and they're interested in putting together a Heritage Day celebration the first Saturday in August, as usual. A bit modified in that they would not have the bouncy house and the enclosed inflatable toys, but the rock climbing wall and the ones that are all outside. Also talking about not having a parade, but limiting it to a day at the park, having activities at the park, and they're looking to see if the board would be supportive of that. They would need at least $12,000 to $15,000 in support from the trustees, as we have before, for the inflatables and the porta potties, and I believe that's all. Then they would try to go to our businesses and get sponsors. So, that would be a question for the board, if you would want to support the entire festivity, or if you would, and budgets, I understand. So, but if you
already posed that question.
Right, if you're thinking of allowing them to have the park and have the event, then at least they could get started planning and, again, perhaps put a budget
Like the
together.
bandstand committee. Now you want to authorize Heritage Day.
I so move that we move forward with Heritage Day and let the Heritage Day committee start formulating a plan. Just the same stipulation, we'll have to budget it in the March budget.
I'll second.
And you said at the park, not the Circle?
Yes, they want to do it. They have vendors that are spread out. They had good success.
Yeah, had a great time at the park.
Okay.
Nobody get ran over. No. Okay, any other discussion? I'll call for the vote.
Dressler, yes.
Colner, yes.
Schulte, yes.
Anything else, Ms. Marshall? Okay. Then I will make a motion that we go into executive session for pending litigation. Discuss benefits of personnel in all departments. Chief Bauer, yours is for employment in the fire department. So it would be executive session for employment in the fire department and executive session for employment in the service department. Did I name them all? I believe so. Looking for a second.
Second, pending a 5-minute recess.
Ms. Marshall, Ms. Marshall, will you call the roll?
Trustee Schulte?
Yes.
Trustee Palmer?
Yes.
Trustee
Yes.
Okay, we have a recess and we'll come back in executive session. Yeah. So what we'll give, okay.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, I will second motion to go back to public. Any discussion? All in favor, say.
Dressler,
aye.
yes.
Colner, yes.
Schulte, yes.
All right, we're back in public session. Ms. Marshall, is the recording back on?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor, and it was seconded to address the issue of Tuscan Ridge Development Company LLC to be included into the Copley Akron Joint Economic District, Development District. After discussion with our attorney, I would,
It was tabled.
yeah, it was tabled. I would remain tabled until next meeting. Any other discussion?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
It's going to remain tabled. All right. Thank you.
Good night.
Yeah, we just did that out of convenience for you. We have a.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, folks. We're going to go back into executive session to take care of the rest of our executive session business. We're not going to discuss this one any further. Thank you. So I would entertain a motion to go back into executive session for employment of personnel in the fire department, benefits of personnel in all departments, and the employment of personnel in the service department. Do I have a second?
Schulte.
Schulte, second. Colner made the motion. Call the roll, please.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, we're back in executive session. David, are you with us?
Yeah, I am. And so now that we're on this, just understand.
This conference will now be recorded.
So we're back. We're back in public. Excuse me. We're back in public, and I'd like to make a motion that we hire Mr. Divot in the fire department.
So move Schulte.
Any discussion? There was a second. I'll call for the vote.
Dressler, yes.
Colner, yes.
Schulte, yes.
Okay. Any other business? Go ahead.
Please.
Request permission to enter into a tentative agreement with the Fraternal Order of Police for a 1-year bargaining agreement.
As presented. I make a motion that we enter into the agreement as presented before us.
Second Schulte.
Second Schulte. Call for the vote.
Yes.
Colner, yes.
Schulte, yes.
And Ms. Marshall, you can sign our behalf. Is that correct?
Well, I don't know.
Or all three? Okay.
And then we need to accept retirement in the state of our Marine Service Department, effective 2021.
So move, Colner.
Second Schulte.
So the vote is to acknowledge Ms. Amer's retirement. Call for the vote.
Dressler, yes.
Colner, yes.
Schulte, yes.
Any other business for the trustees? Okay, I
Move
move
to
to adjourn. I'll second. All in favor for adjournment?
Dressler, yes.
Colner, yes.
Schulte, yes.
We're adjourned.
Dressler, yes.